Today's talk is a synopsis of the talk I gave on the 27th of January. The session started with the question of a person who said, "How do we read the Vedas?" I have given the answer many times. You start with the smaller compact books such as Guidance to Work, Agni, or the book on Indra, Vairi Rigveda, and other books. Then you can only go to the books like the already along with this course we have given a booklet of mantras with translations and everything. Then you can read them. Then you can go to the complete the mandala 1, mandala 2, etc. Don't begin with the mandala 1. Essentially, I want you to focus on the essentials of Rigveda and essentials of Atharva Veda. The second question is more basic. Some of the people say, we have heard these lectures, but how do we practice this Vedic way of life? In some sense, I have referred to it in my writings and other things, but I basically repeat it. In the West particularly, people say, I am not religious. Yes, because they don't agree with the basic ideas, but they always say we are spiritual. The important word is the spirit. But the question is, what is spirit? Unless you get a grip on the basic meaning of the spirit, you are not going to get much advantage. So, your attempt to focus your life on the Vedic ideas begins with the first lesson of focusing on the meaning of spirit. Spirit is a cosmic force, powerful force existing everywhere, and it is in not only human beings, animals, plants, and everything. It is the first thing, that is spirit. So people ask, what is the matter? This matter is the foundation of the spirit, and mind is the link between the spirit and this matter. That is the whole idea. So the more you understand what is the fundamental ideas of spirit, then you will have a much better idea of what to follow. Sri Aurobindo said in many places that the basic teachings of the Veda are essential, and all the later developments in all things, whether our physical sciences or mathematics in ancient India, we can trace them to the Veda. That is its basic idea. Therefore, remember always the point I have been saying again and again, that our world is continuously changing, Jagat. Therefore, what we have to understand is we can't copy the Vedic way of life, but we have to, in some sense, focus on the principles and accept the modern ideas also. That is this point again I have to make again. Therefore, it is not a question of copy. Second is, what are those fundamental principles behind this idea of a spirit? And at least I will tell you one of the first principle is that the universe, the earth for example, does not belong to the human beings. It belongs to all the living beings, including animals, bacteria, and everything. Therefore, in some sense, we have to understand we have to live consciously, cooperatingly with all other living beings. Therefore, we simply cannot kill them saying, I need it for my food and that sort of thing. That is not acceptable at all. But the nature has designed so that we can get our food without indulging in all of this harm also. That is point, Vedic point again and again it emphasizes. For example, people say, I can't live without the chewing taste of meat, but today meat can be fake meat, it is called, can be made by soya beans also. The second point really is that the fundamental point of our all the problems is we have not been sufficiently grateful for all the things that is around us. What in the Sanskrit we call the kritanyata. So the gratitude, in some sense, that is lacking in our life. So the phrases such as I am a self-made man and others doesn't make much sense at all. We have obtained all our prosperity and other things by the combination of so many persons and so many aspects of nature which we do not want to accept. As I told you so many times, the food we cook, for example, who creates the taste? No robot can create the taste. It is made by the cosmic powers of Agni, Indra, and all, and especially the waters, and all of them, they create the taste. Therefore, the first the point really is that you should sort of understand there is no such thing as a self-made person. We all of us are getting help from so many quarters, and not only cosmic beings, animals, and others. For example, I tell people, how do you get your oxygen? It is not because there is the plants which give out the oxygen. That's this idea. Therefore, all of these basic points we have to remember. Our modern education doesn't focus upon these things. Second principle of the Vedic ideas is that we should lead a harmonious life with all the living forms, with all the human beings, animals, etc. So the idea is not only Vedic idea has no enmity towards getting prosperity. It does not teach poverty at all. It teaches prosperity. Therefore, we should work for prosperity. But at the same time, we should make sure our attempts at getting our prosperity does not mean other people should become poor. Therefore, we should we should aim at the prosperity for all persons also. Therefore, friendly living towards everything and helping others towards prosperity also. For example, to give an idea that we people, for example, who use agriculture, for example, modern people stress the need for fertilizers and pesticides. The argument always is these pesticides and germicides, they kill the fundamental microbes which are in the soil, which are needed for the development of our crops. And therefore, if we kill them, if we use them, essentially in the long run, our earth will become like a desert. So at this point, we don't quite understand. We are carried away by the technology and that sort of thing. It's not that technology is bad or good, but this point is very important that we should understand what is this idea of the harm we are giving, not only directly. Now, people say don't kill animals, but indirectly in the destruction you are doing for the sort of bacteria and other living beings in the soil which are essential for our growth. That is the idea. Therefore, these two, in some sense, at least these two we can practice to a certain extent. The mother of the ashram, Aurobindo ashram, often said, she basically gave out, and a third point we have to understand is this idea of faith or a shraddha. So, faith is not a sort of belief. In some sense, it is the faith that living this Vedic way of life will not only bring us outward prosperity, but bring us inward happiness also. When people speak of the spiritual life, people think it is all religious. That's not quite correct. The idea is, for example, the people say, oh, I am interested in starting industry. Why do you want to do it? Oh, it increases my comforts. But you ask the question, does it give you happiness? Not quite. Similarly, all our attempts at, shall we say, ethics, morality, and on to things like economics, the sort of finance and everything. They can be approached from the spiritual point of view. And the spiritual point of view does help the society at large. For example, in the modern economic methods, a person works hard and of course he becomes rich, but he doesn't quite understand the problems he is creating for the society at large. That is this idea. The Vedic idea is it is possible to develop economic methods which are not only produce the necessary things, but also does not cause harm to nature and does not cause harm to other people also. Therefore, the spirituality has to be extended to all aspects of life, including our emotions, art, literature, economics, finance, and everything. Some people may ask, well, it is easy to say in a single word, but what about the details? Yes, Sri Aurobindo wrote about it extensively. All in his collected works of Sri Aurobindo, in volume 20, it is called The Renaissance of India. He mentions all of these problems in some great detail. Therefore, we are going to publish it in some newsletter also, the basic idea. For each topic he spends, the book is about 450 pages, and 2 or 3 pages he spends on all the topic, how we can make our appreciation of art, the idea of economics, politics, everything. It can be spiritualized. Mother of the ashram said, each individual, so the usual question is, what are the qualities we have to develop so that we can indeed go in this direction? That is this idea. She gave a list of 8 individual qualities which each one of us should develop, practice. That is the idea. Not only understand what it means and practice it also. That is what she went on stressing. So, what are these practical points? First, she said that this idea of a gratitude, which I mentioned earlier, we should really focus upon all aspects of life. How do we get all the things we need? How do we get the water we drink? How do we get the food we eat? All of these things. So gratitude is one of the first things we have to understand. So along with gratitude, automatically we have to develop humility. That is, we didn't create the water we are drinking. It comes from the water from the pond. Therefore, what have I done to make sure the water in the pond is right, or your water is right? Therefore, a second quality is humility. So first is gratitude, second is humility. All the good things to me comes from so many help of so many other people. We simply cannot say, I get the water from the tap. Where does the water come to the tap? That is this idea. The third point she mentioned was what we call as the sincerity or straightforwardness. Whatever you do in your life, in your transactions with other people, make sure what you say is also what you really mean. What is modern language people talk, walk the talk. That is, whatever you say, you should practice it also. There is no question of saying, I didn't mean it and that sort of thing. Sincerity. So first gratitude, second humility, third sincerity. Fourth thing, she said what is called as aspiration. Everybody in this world, human being, should have some higher aim in addition to saying, I support myself and family and that sort of thing. It needn't be very high, but it is something. For example, all of us need good water. Therefore, we can ask the question, how we can make sure the source of water is good, or like the ponds or the rivers. Or for example, the food example I gave you, how can we make sure the food we eat, the food that is grown for us, does not kill all other living beings also. So in real life, and also we can think of educating, giving these positive ideas. We can think of going to the schools and telling them how we get our oxygen, how do we get all of this. Does oxygen simply drop from the heaven? No, thank you. Therefore it comes from the trees. But the point is, we simply kill the trees completely without any sense at all. We, for example, in Brazil and other places, every year they destroy 84,000 hectares of trees and other things. Therefore, in some sense, this idea, we must have some basic higher ideals so that it's not that I myself should become perfect, that's perfectly alright, but in some sense it needn't be very high, but at the same time I help other people, at least I try to help other people. Remember, the other forces come into the effect. So the fourth point, as I said, is what we call the aspiration. Distinguish aspiration from desire. Desire is something I want only for myself, assuming it creates comfort, not necessarily true. And secondly, aspiration in some sense, realization. For example, people who are good nurses, they feel in some sense happiness in their work. Veda always says, when you do some work conscious thinking, it helps all people. Then that use a certain amount of joy in the work. Therefore, so this idea is, this idea of aspiration should be distinguished from desire. So Veda, in all prayers, we don't ask anything for myself. We say, let whatever good I ask come to all the people in the community. Therefore, it uses the word we, not the individual I. So, next point she says is, whenever of course in trying to achieve this aspiration, we may make some efforts. Of course, there will be some drawbacks. But whenever you have some difficulty, you develop the habit of praying to the divine, asking the Supreme Spirit to come and help. This must be a positive thing. It is not a loud prayer only. It is a prayer in the heart. Therefore, mothers always said, whenever there is a sincere prayer, there is always a positive response. And unfortunately, how can we have? We should become calm. Many times we simply ignore the suggestion. That is our problem. Therefore, if we have to improve the sort of our acceptance, when the suggestion comes, we should pay attention to it. At least try to implement, understand it and implement it. Instead of saying, oh, this suggestion is not impossible to work with. We should not. When a suggestion comes to you from the divine, from the high spirit, then indeed it can be worked out. The next one she mentioned was a belief in progress. She attached great importance to that. So remember, all of us are familiar with the great achievements like the cell phones and other things which really help us in many ways. And she had absolutely said all of those things are really useful. Therefore, but the progress should be not only at the physical level, but at the psychological level, and also at the level of the mind and of the society at large. So many of the things which science prompts us to go forward are not things which will do us good in the long run. So every progress we have to look from the point of view of discrimination. Discrimination is what will it do in the long run? Now people never ask this question. What we call as sustainability, our way of life, will it be sustainable 100 years later for our grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, and that's all. Therefore, the progress is very important. Therefore, we have progress very much. So, we shouldn't say the old methods are always good. No, change is an essential part of life. As I told you, the world is changing, therefore, all of it is changing. But when new things come, people always confuse the progress with science and that sort of thing. Science does give, technology does give many things, but we have to understand science is unable to answer even fundamental questions. Many of the things, for example, the coconut tree is there, so people ask a simple question: how does the water go to the 100 feet and get into the coconut at the top of the tree? Therefore, science cannot give explanation even for the simple things like that. Even the sort of the science we learned at school, like the Newton's, we have learned this idea gravitational constant is good for all time. That's not even true. You can verify it now. All of us are living in 10-story building. You can drop a heavy stone and measure the G very easily. That's the question. So the point is, progress is important. Science has its own important place, science and technology. But the argument is, technology is okay as long as it deals with physical things. Our heart strength, leg strength, etc. And of course, all are useful. But when it goes into the realm of living things and biology, we should be doubly careful. For example, the idea of modifying the genes in a plant, etc., they are very dangerous. We have no idea the sort of things they will do for us in the long run. To give an example of my own colleagues at Purdue, for example, in the 1930s when X-rays were discovered, all young persons who had marks on their faces wanted to remove it by X-ray. They did it. But 40 years later, they were the same people who had skin cancer and died of it. Therefore, we should be careful about it. Therefore, the idea of progress is very important. For example, when you start any enterprise, we need courage. Therefore, progress and courage go hand in hand. Therefore, courage is also important in some sense. Without courage, we can't do anything. And finally, we have to understand that so whatever things you start, you must have what is called as perseverance. That when you think before you start anything, but once you start this, try to complete it to the, at least the first beginning stage at least. Don't drop it in this way. Therefore, these are the 8 qualities which she developed or requested human beings to practice in some to the extent possible. She also added 4 other qualities to be appreciated, and they already are there. So in some sense we have to, in some sense, work with them. The 4 qualities are generosity. It is the complement of the gratitude, generosity. Then the idea of the peace is there, and then the idea of the equanimity is there. Equanimity is, there should be equilibrium. Our body, as long as all the parts are working, it is really healthy. Similarly, our society also. So equality is there. So in some sense, Mother said 8 plus 4, these are virtues basically. Well, peace means, and goodness. The idea is, why do you persevere? Because you believe what you are doing is good, and the power of goodness will help you in the long run. That is this idea. Therefore, peace, goodness, and our generosity and equanimity. That's very important. There need to be society also. The differences may be there, but there need to be an equilibrium. The idea is not everybody should have the same income. That sort of a stupid equality is not what is being taught. But because the different people work different ways, and the human being and their work is exceedingly complex, but there is a basic idea of equanimity, how we have to treat all the things. As I told you, we have to respect the ant, and we have to respect the ant hill also, and we have to respect the trees and everything. This is a part of the idea of the equanimity. Therefore, Mother spent quite a bit of time explaining all of these things. But the main point again and again is the first two ideas. We try to understand that what we call a spirit is not a complex thing, unimaginable thing. That is, once you invoke the spirit, it will help you. That is the idea of, spirit does not have hands and legs. It works through the human body, and it you suggest the human mind, then it will give. So the point again and again is that the higher power, the divine powers. Here is a question some people ask. We are all aware of the Vedic cosmic powers, Agni, Indra, Varuna, waters, etc. What is the connection here to the spirit? All we can say is all of them are aspects of the Supreme Spirit, number one. Therefore, it is not that, for example, we basically to understand that there is no barrier between the Devas like Agni or Indra and ourselves. That is the important point. No hard barrier. That's why the important prayer is, O Devas, we are yours, Vayam Tava. But you are also to us. Tvam Asmakam. You are in us, we are in you. Therefore, this idea of harmonious working of the cosmic powers, Agni, Indra, etc., is exceedingly important. It is all aspects of the Supreme Spirit. Therefore, in some sense, for example, the Supreme Spirit, the sun we see outside the earth, it is a good example of the work, how it is the cause for our rains to come, our grains to grow, and our activity and everything. Therefore, that is the reason Veda attaches a great importance to this sun, and therefore the idea is we should first develop the idea of the splendor, of the various help it is giving it. The prayer is Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. May we meditate on the splendor of the sun, which is giving us so many benefits. Then that sun may basically increase and encourage the good thoughts, work we can do. Dhiyo yonaha prachodayat. This is the famous Gayatri Mantra in the Rig Veda. Therefore, the spirit we speak of is one, but one not a numerical one. It is the great unifying power of all the different cosmic powers, Agni, Indra, etc., and also all the human beings and all the animals and everything. So it harmonizes the entire creation in some sense. Of course, there are negative powers which doesn't help, but the idea is it is God, it is a divine powers which help us to overcome all these negative transactions. And as long as you are really in a positive mood, opening yourself to the positive ideas, then automatically all the things really will turn out to be true. Therefore, the Veda always says life is a play also. We have different levels of consciousness. I told you Veda focuses on 7 levels of consciousness. The basic Anna or matter, and the prana energy, emotional side, etc. And the mind, the lower 3. Upper 3 are what we call as the Ananda or the bliss, the consciousness force, Chit, and what we call as the supreme substance, Sat. The link between them is what is called as Vijnana or Mahas. And therefore it is the sun we speak of, is the power of this Mahas. He is the supreme power. He gives us, he invokes us to all of these good things at all. So my argument really is that we should develop in some sense. There are sort of mantras for Surya, we have a separate book for him, and therefore we should really understand how we don't, when we eat the food, we don't understand the benefit we are getting from all this also, how the food was grown by the help of the soil and agriculture and that sort of thing, how it was brought to us. How so? We think only of the cook who cuts the vegetables. That's not correct. So it is the basic idea of this Vedic way of life is acknowledge the help you are giving from various qualities. Then slowly your mind will become wider and wider. Once you become wider and wider, your mind will become more creative. Once you become creative, then you understand what work you can do in half hour, you can do it in 5 minutes. Therefore, that's how the nature, the Supreme Power has designed all of these different ways of looking at things. Therefore, when you do this Vedic way of life, therefore there is nothing like a fixed goal as it were. Every day it is like going to climbing a hill. You add one step, another step, another step. It is an unending journey because the road to perfection is unending. Remember, we want perfection on all sides, not only physical, at emotional level, at mental level, at society level, and everything. So, in some sense, our journey can't stop at all. Therefore, it is this attitude of the Vedic people that we believe in progress, we believe step by step. The point is, it is not a journey. So, if you stay, I am going to stop here, it means your journey is not complete at all. Therefore, in some sense, we need a positive attitude of life, that without a life of fatigue, without a life where we feel shortages and that sort of thing, we can work not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all other human beings and other living beings also. So with this, I will end this talk. Moreover, there will be a brief written things also, and that's enough.